Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Gotham Knights. A great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I'll go ahead and say this. I thought it was a great series premiere. I really enjoyed it. I'm very excited to continue the series. If you don't share that opinion, that's okay. I like what I like. I know I'm going to super be in a minority. Like, I know that this show is definitely going to be in the same vein as like Batwoman, where I really like Batwoman. I super know not a lot of people did, and that's fine. So I just don't want anyone jumping down my throat like, oh, you thought this is great? Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So once again, if you didn't feel that way, that's super okay. I just don't want anyone. I don't want to hear anyone jumping down my throat because I enjoyed it. Like, oh, you thought this is great, blah 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 blah. I'm not trying to hear it. So just kind of making that clear from the very beginning. But just so many interesting things. Like right off the bat, the moment Bruce had the coin in his hand, I was like, whoa. I was like, wait, we're doing a Court of Owls story? Because like I don't think any of the trailers, at least the trailer I saw, which is like forever ago, like the very first trailer was like forever ago. I think it was like a 4-minute trailer or something like that. But yeah, I don't think they showed any. I think everything was mainly from this first episode, like most series trailers are for the CW. But I think I don't think it had anything Court of Owls related. So I was like, oh, obviously the timing's interesting because the game with the same name revolved around the Gotham Knights. Ended up revolving around the Court of Owls, and also had Bruce Wayne dying. So there's that. Adopting Turner was interesting too. I know that was an issue for some people. It's like there's so many people you could do. It's like you could do a Dick Grayson, but I guess like I don't, because this has no correlation with the Gotham Knights game. So I don't know if they felt like because they were all using, because that uses all of the Bat family. It has Dick, Barbara, Jason, and Tim? Is Tim the other one, or is that Damian? I actually don't know who the actual Robin is. I don't know if that was Tim or is that Damian, who's the Robin in that game. Either way, it might be Damian. Maybe? I don't know. But it's like, right, we made up a new character just for the sake of making him Bruce. And so maybe that's why it's kind of like, yeah, you can kind of get away with that, this story. Like, probably, like, I don't know. Once again, it's always been that whisper of like, yeah, sometimes TV show-wise, they won't let you use certain characters. So it's like, right, we already did Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake on Titans, so maybe that's just kind of like it's like we hadn't done Damian Wayne yet, but obviously they're going to do that in the Brave and the Bold Batman for the DCU, but obviously this was like in production like well before then, yada yada, so on and so forth. So maybe there's like a lot of reasons why. I mean, it's on an alternate Earth, it can be in its own pocket thing, so you don't have to worry about continuity, but it's still like like I said, I've always heard that weird thing that like they're very picky about like what they'll let you do on TV because they want to save certain things for movies. I think that's been a conversation I've heard about for DC stuff for a while, especially when it came to Arrowverse stuff. But once again, that's neither like nothing I can confirm. That's always just something I've heard, but I don't know how much validity there is to that. Either way, the timing for that adopted son storyline is also interesting too because, I mean, well, it's obviously he's always had that like pseudo complicated child relationship with like father-son relationship with every one of his sidekicks, whether it be like any of the Robins, including the one that is his actual biological son, Damian. But either way, the reason why I was saying the timing is interesting because if you haven't been watching The Flash in this final season, spoilers, Ryan Wilder, there was a Ryan Wilder from an alternate timeline who got adopted by Bruce after her parents died, which is like, interesting. And the same thing happened to Turner, which obviously it's like, well, I mean, obviously the same thing happened to, I'm assuming Jason was in the same situation. We know Dick Grayson's in the same circumstance of being an orphan. And even Turner was saying that in the voiceover, just kind of like, right, how his dad had hidden behind a mask. And it's not until that mask is taken off of you, because even he's like, yeah, I've worn a mask my entire time playing this role. It's interesting that obviously his dad had to play up the playboy, like, oh, billionaire role and stuff like that. And he kind of leaned into it to fill the void of like the darkness and emptiness he felt. He kind of played up the rich boy, spoiled bratness of it all. That was his way. He had a lot more in common with his dad than he thought. But it is the situation of, it's not until the mask comes off that you get to really see who you really are. So throws a party. Obviously, there's no Alfred around. He kind of has his own Alfred, which I don't know if we should be trusting her or not. We'll have to wait and see. That's also the interesting thing. Once again, just even like Batwoman parallels, because it's like, right, because Alfred was already dead in the Batwoman universe. So even like the mainline continuity, he's already gone of like the Arrowverse. But Turner had his own, she definitely has a different feel from like, Alfred, and just like the way she handled, like Alfred and Bruce's dynamic versus hers and Turner's is very different. But obviously the story revolves around Bruce getting murdered. And at the heart of this is our trio of villains: Harper, her brother Cullen, and what's Joker's daughter's name, Dima? Because I think even in the comics, she's that character. It's not this exact character, but that Joker's daughter is kind of like one of her aliases. That character, apparently, like, it's unclear, at least what I read about when the trailer first dropped, apparently she's notorious for saying she's the daughter of so many different villains. I think even like what she like, oh, I'm the Penguin's daughter or something like that. Like a lot of top tier Batman villains, she'll say she's their daughter, and I think it's ambiguous. Maybe it's almost supposed to be like that Joker thing of like, do you want to know how I got these scars? Like even the Joker's origin across a lot of stuff is, kind of shrouded in shadow, because it's like, right, knowing isn't as interesting. It's like keeping a mystery, keeping it vague. So, but they're leaning with more like, no, she straight up is Joker's daughter. So that's interesting. I love all the characters. I'm like, oh, I really like her, because I like her like cadence, and I just like how like chaotic and wild she is. It's always interesting also knowing like what Bruce ends up keeping, because she ends up being like, ooh, this isn't just some regular gun. This is a gun Joe Chill used to kill Bruce Wayne's parents. It's like, oh, and the fact is you're getting so excited about it. But yeah, they were framed for Bruce's murder, and obviously Harvey, being the DA, is at the top of the food chain trying to solve Bruce's murder, especially when it's revealed to the world that he's Batman. The world not only lost their biggest pseudo last remaining member of one of Gotham's founding families, the Waynes. Especially considering all the tragedies that always befall Gotham and its families. But it's like, there's that, but also it's like, right, you not only lost Bruce Wayne, you lost your greatest hero. I mean, hell, at least in Batwoman, it's not, oh, Batman is dead. It's like, no, he just left. And obviously in this continuity, Batman killed Joker, which I'm like, man, they're really leaning into that, because Titans they've technically, that's happened technically 4 times now, because Titans technically did it twice, because Trigon in the first season was in Dick's head and made him hallucinate stuff and made him see Bruce killing Joker, finally like going over the edge. But then later on, Bruce does kill Joker after he killed Jason Todd. Even in the Arrowverse, Batman killed Joker as well. So I was like, man, they really, really leaned into that now. Of like, yeah, I guess it's kind of supposed to signify like, we don't know the full context behind Joker and him, like what really went down. So we don't know if it was like an accidental situation, or was it a thing of he was pushed too far? Who knows? Am I the only one too that saw some of that iconography? Like there was like one poster of like Batman, whatever. I was like, that looks like the iconography that they used for like the Matt Reeves Batman. I don't know if that's something taken straight from the comics, but like the red shading and like the dark, like the silhouette of the suit, and then like the bat symbol on the chest is red. I was like, that looked like that was our Bat's like silhouette type of thing. Like I like kind of an homage to that. Like I said, I don't know if even that's an homage to something from the comics or not. Maybe from like a very specific run, not like this like a I don't think it's going to be like a Dark Knight type of thing or not. Or like a Dark Knight or Dark Knight Returns. I don't think it's going to be that type of thing. But like I said, this show ended up being a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. What the fact is that we find out from the the Rose siblings that like, the fact is, what was it, that line that Harper said? She was like, yeah, my dad, liked bisexual girls in his porn, but not in his roof. And, it turns out Harper's brother Colin is, transitioned. I was like, oh, that. So they had like a very abusive father. Obviously, Dina, like I said, I think that's her name, or Dina, talked about her relationship with the Joker. It's like, oh, your dad killed my dad. He left me. I basically grew up in Arkham. Like, he left me and my mom to grow up in Arkham before I even had a tooth growing in my mouth. And the fact is, he scampered off with his little side piece, Harley Quinn. I was like, ooh, that's interesting too, to make it like, oh, Harley was the side piece, which makes you wonder, well, he's dead, but like, where's Harley in this universe? It's kind of interesting, you know? That's the thing we don't know too, like how many of his villains are already preset. Because obviously they did a good job of like, setting that up in Batwoman of like which villains, like which, you know, because they kind of did a legacy thing in season 3 of like the next people to kind of take up those mantles. So that was interesting. Something I got wrong, because I thought, I remembered, like I said, it's been a long time since I saw the trailer. The girl who's basically Robin in this, I thought that was Stephanie. That's Carrie. Turner's friend is Stephanie. I was like, interesting. Because Carrie's like, obviously, like, over the years, I've gotten more well-versed in Stephanie. I still don't know everything about Stephanie, but I know enough. Once again, the thing I always go back to is like, well, I know who her father is. Her father's a supervillain named Cluemaster, and I know that she's the only person, once again, that Wikipedia thing I've always latched onto is that she's the only person that's ever taken up the mantle of Robin and Batgirl. But she became her own hero named Spoiler. So I don't know if that's going to be, I mean, we don't know what her dad's situation is like. They might not even touch on that this series or not, about her dad being the supervillain, because she also, speaking of Batwoman, that character did pop up in Batwoman, also made like a cameo kind of appearance. And like, oh, Bruce, after Jason died in Titans, is like, oh, I'm looking for a new person. And Stephanie Brown's name came across in her profile pic. So it's like, there's that. But also, Carrie's one of those, like, I don't know which Robin she is. Same thing with, like, Stephanie. I don't know which Robin they are, because I don't know. I know it's like, there's Dick, there's Jason, and Tim, I think, is number 3. And then maybe Carrie, and then Stephanie, and then I think Damian might be number 5. I don't know. I think Carrie was only Robin for, like, a super short amount of time, or maybe it was Stephanie that was only Robin for a super short amount of time. I have no idea. But yeah, the moment he met Carrie at the party, he was like, oh, do I know? He's like, well, to be fair, I don't really know anyone at this party, you know? And except he had like the complicated thing of Stephanie, his best friend, is making out with kind of the douchebag that he's kind of got beef with, which I'm assuming like that was also kind of indicative of, it seems like Turner might have a thing for Stephanie. It's also like probably like one of the only like real friends he has. Like, it's like, right, because he even says it later on that everyone always looks at him as a kid and like, oh, you hit the jackpot. I mean, God, Bruce Wayne adopted you. But it's like, but he said this potent line where he's like, you're the only one that recognized, like, the only way I could get adopted by Bruce Wayne is by losing my 2 parents. So it's like, yeah, everyone focuses on like, oh, you're so lucky. It's like, yeah, I'm so lucky my parents were brutally murdered and their killer was never found. But yeah, I'm super lucky, you know? So, and that type of darkness sits inside of you. I mean, that's why Bruce probably adopted Turner, because it's like, right, I know what it's like to be you. And he didn't want that darkness to be fostered. Because obviously it seems like we're kind of implying this being kind of like a Batwoman thing. Once again, initially Batwoman set it up to be like, no, Bruce had no sidekicks. But later stuff, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I could have sworn later stuff implied like maybe there were other sidekicks other than like Lucius and Alfred and eventually Luke. But it's like he might have had like other like sidekicks out there, but I don't know if that was just me misremembering, because I don't know if that was like a post-crisis thing or not. But either way, it kind of indicative of, it seems like Carrie was his only Robin, but even she wasn't like his hardcore, like, oh, we always fight crime together. She was more like his eyes and ears out in the streets. Like, he turned to her from time to time situation, so. But it doesn't seem like he had any sidekicks in this universe potentially. So like no Dick Grayson, no Jason Todd, nothing like that. I mean, obviously Stephanie hasn't become Robin, and even Carrie hasn't fully become Robin. So, but my point is like Bruce has always kind of fostered that darkness, which is always, I mean, and that's what something I really liked about Titans is how resentful not only Dick, but even Jason became towards Bruce, because they always wanted to prove themselves to him so much because he made them to what they are. And now it's like, yeah, you damaged us. We are severely screwed up human beings because of you, because you were screwed up when you were raising us and you screwed us up in the process. So it's like, right, he didn't want to do that with Turner, so that's why Turner had no idea about his darkness of him being Batman, because yeah, I might be a hero, but that hero was brought about because of a terrible tragedy, and I wanted you to have some form of a normal life. I didn't want the darkness to tap you like it tapped me, like the darkness became his, I was about to reference kind of Dexter in the regard of like, yeah, kind of having a dark passenger. Batman became his, it didn't even become his dark passenger. It became his dark driver, because Batman, the whole argument of Batman is who Bruce really is after everything, and Bruce Wayne is the mask and the disguise, right? So it's also interesting, too, because it seemed like they went with, like, the massive Batcave. To be fair, it's just a path for, like, the Batmobile, which that Batmobile was like, oh, that looks, like, closer to classic Batmobile based on what we saw. Kind of reminds me of like the Batmobile from like the animated series, more so. It wasn't muscle car-y like R-Bats, but it wasn't like it wasn't the one that Bell or Affleck used. So, but well, looking into the person who hired our trio of villains to quote unquote kill Bruce, Stephanie finds out that the money came from an account linked to Turner, so he immediately gets arrested. The fact is that other cop was so quick to be like, no, we got him. I was like, yeah, that doesn't seem suspicious, and turns out he's part of this whole thing, which, oh my God, dirty cops in Gotham City? Color me surprised. I mean, once again, we just had a Batman movie last year. Yeah, it's like, geez, that came out last year. Yeah, that's kind of wild to think about. Yeah, but that came out literally a year ago, and that was all about corruption, even amongst the GCPD and higher up people. I'm curious about the whole, I don't think Harvey's going to be a bad guy, but I think he's going to be an opportunist, that he will take advantage of stuff because he thinks like, oh, it'll be he'll justify it, be like, right, I'm having to hunt down Turner, but it's like, I can do more good as the mayor, yada, yada, yada. Like, I don't know if he's going to go full two-faced this or not. We might see little inklings of like the psychology is there, but it's not until he gets the melted face and his mind completely breaks that maybe that dual side of him fully comes to the surface. Maybe it's already there, but Also should point out, he's played by Misha Collins. The moment I saw him in the trailer, I was like, oh, that's super dope. Obviously, if you're unaware, Misha Collins is best known on this network for playing Castiel in Supernatural. So, also timing interesting too, considering the Winchesters, which just wrapped, had some familiar faces pop up in the season finale. So, I love the whole pseudo brawl that they got into, Turner along with the other three, like when it came to like, oh my God, they're like, especially Joker's daughter, like smacking him around and stuff, and it turns into this whole tussle, but it turns out that was all a ploy so they could get some of those little pins off of the cops so that they could break out. It's like, oh yeah, like, oh, that was good job selling it. He was like, wait, that was a fake fight? And Joker's daughter was like, oh, it was a real punches, but it was like, yeah, it was just a ploy. Apparently, everyone was in on it except for Turner. And I remember that scene from the trailer, and I thought it was actually, I really, really like it, where she's just like struggling, and the cop's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm trying to get my cuffs off. It seems, like Cullen and Harper had no trouble getting theirs off. What? Boom, boom, boom. I like that. But it's like, yeah, you have to choose a side, Turner. He chose to work with the villains, but when it came time, they were about ready to pop one of the cops, the main cop dude, but he got away because he's like, this isn't what my dad would want. But it turns out every single cop there is dirty and they're ready to kill you. And it's like, yeah, you almost got us all killed because you're trying to be chivalrous. But luckily, Stephanie showed up with some bat gadgets. Once again, maybe I'm just not even remembering I feel like Batwoman wasn't even that. I mean, I think it had bloody moments, but I don't think it was. I kind of forget. This is also the same network that had Supernatural, and Supernatural can get pretty grody sometimes, can get pretty gruesome with like some of its deaths, and I mean, it gets pretty bloody. So I think I kind of forget how far a TV 14 can go. It's something I'm always reminded, like, oh, like you forget how, I mean, Multiverse of Madness, regardless of how you felt about that movie, that made most people go, ooh, that's a hard PG-13. That's a super hard PG-13 that could easily skate over to an R with just certain things. They probably had to cut stuff out to make it a PG-13. But it's like this. It's like, man, TV-14 stretch a lot further than you kind of think they would. Either way. Because Stephanie, Carrie ended up like battering him and the cop in the hand. You saw that. He later on got decapitated, which I was like, I mean, it's not like it's something that wild. I mean, but I think it's just because it's been so long since I've seen Arrow, and I think I kind of forget like how Batwoman could get bloody too, but I don't think it ever got that gruesomely bloody, but nevertheless. It's like, oh, please tell me you brought the Batmobile. It's like, my mom's car, actually, and it's going to be a pretty tight thing. It's like, oh, I'm not going anywhere with this kid. You almost got his kid. He's like, right, I'm sorry, but like, we need to stick together. She smacks him. Okay, take the front seat. I'm like, dude, I love it because she's giving me Harley energy, which I'm sure she would take that as an insult. Do not compare me to that hussy who took my father away from me, which I hated my father. So, I mean, that's going to be probably, well, to all of them kind of have dad issues. Not kind of, they straight up do. Turner has the complicated feelings he has about his dad because his dad isn't who he thought he was. Obviously, Joker's daughter, it's like, yeah, she has all the reasons to kind of have the heated relationship with her dad. And Harper and Cullen are in the same boat. We're like, well, their dad was an abusive piece of shit, so. But now our team is wanted. I mean, obviously, Stephanie's a little sick because they don't really know her, but obviously they know the name of our prison breaking quartet, which is interesting. I also bring up Prison Break because of, oh, God. Leonard Snart's actor, oh, God, is going to bother the crap out of me. He was in Prison Break. Oh, yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, also was Heatwave's actor was also in Prison Break. You know, and it's like now that they were both in the Arrowverse / DC stuff. So, you know, it wasn't intentionally saying Prison Break just for that, just to make that parallel. But it's just, yeah. Either way, putting all my tangents aside. Joker's daughter is the one that tells him about the Court of Owls. Obviously, it's like, yeah, they're the ones who really run this city. And, you know, she's like, yeah, I heard about them in Arkham. Once again, that's why I'm wondering what villains exist. Did I bring that up in this recording or not? I don't think I did. Not only were there's so much. For one, the Court of Owls was also used in, like, Gotham. That was a major storyline. And the Gotham stuff. I was like, didn't that culminate to the Ra's or Ra's al Ghul stuff? I don't remember if that fully correlated or not. Maybe that's just my misremembering. But there's also the Harley Quinn series. Like I said, I don't remember if I brought this up, but there was it was episode 4 of the animated series. Maybe I brought that up before. I don't remember if that was this recording or that was a previous recording. Either way, I might have brought that up earlier. I don't know if I did. I just sound so crazy right now. I'm sorry. It's super early in the morning when I'm recording this, and this is when my brain gets a little loopy when I'm trying to like collect my thoughts. So I do apologize. I'm going to leave it in. Maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see what the editing looks like with this when I actually end up uploading it. But yeah, because of her time in Arkham, she heard whispers, she heard the rumors, the stories about the Court of Owls. And so they had their own little personal assassin who went to go kill the cops. So that's interesting, which now you're like, okay, so who's amongst the Court of Owls. I don't think it's going to be Harvey, but Harvey might get invited because especially if he's in the mayorship position, they might invite him or at the very least put him under their thumb. The lady he was talking to, the redheaded lady, she might be part of that. And she might be kind of like nudging him like, oh yeah, you might want to like, go full steam ahead with all this because I'll get you the mayorship. Or basically your career could go down the toilet because you wanted to protect this family member who's like, who you say it's like, oh, you're like an uncle to. And even though there's an absorbent amount of evidence, once again, that orgy of evidence that proves that that Turner's behind all of this, so. Which I think is so interesting too because Joker's Order's never been like serious the entire episode except for that moment. And like her even tearing up, like the fact is she's that freaked out about the Court of Owls. Now the question then becomes, like Bruce had to be investigating the Court of Owls. Now the question is, did he get invited and then they find out who he really was? Did they find out that he was Batman and that's why they killed him? It had to be, once again, it had to be someone close enough to who knew that he was Batman to do all that. Because I also brought it up, like the Court of Owls dives into like the founding families of Gotham, and so because I'm curious to know in this continuity, are they going to make the Waynes suck or not? Because there was also talks of, I mean, we don't know what Matt Reeves is going to do with his other two Batman movies potentially. So obviously, like there's stuff that kind of implies like. Maybe they could do a Court of Owls thing for the movies, but who knows if they want to do that after the game and after. I mean, this is his own little lane, so that might not affect any future thoughts like Matt Reeves might have for any, like if he wanted to do anything Court of Owls related. But like, I think because they're connected to the founding of this city, and the Waynes are one of the founding families, so you'll probably dive into like a lot of Gotham's history, especially if you're diving into the Court of Owls storyline. So either way, I'm very interested to ultimately see where all of this end up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.